Welcome to the 2025 Charles Schwab Challenge at the historic Colonial Country Club in Fort Worth, Texas. The event has a storied history dating back to 1946, and the course is nicknamed Hogan's Alley because Ben Hogan won 5 times here throughout his career. Here at GolfWRX.com, though, we know you're here for the gear. So let's kick things off with a look at a great stash of Ben Hogan's old drivers and prototype irons that were set up on the Colonial range for players to hit. And on the other end of the historical spectrum, we saw some completely new irons this week too. On Monday at Colonial, Titleist officially started its tour validation process for its new T-Series irons, consisting of the T100, the T150, the T250, the T350, the T250U, and the new, progressively designed U505 irons that have a bigger 1 iron than progressively smaller 2, 3, and 4 irons. We watched along as Titleist fitters worked with PGA Tour players to get them fit into the right iron models for them. And then, we caught up with some PGA Tour players to get their first take of the irons. First up, Doug Ghim, who's likely making the switch immediately this week. He gave his take on his new mixed set of T-Series irons.
What we found when we tried them today was that on miss hits, the spin stays up and the speed has been a little bit better. So if I thin it or if I hit a little bit heavier, typically like when you thin it, the spin goes way up and it floats and it doesn't quite get there. And when you hit it a little bit heavier, sometimes you can kind of get that fire. And sometimes it even goes further. But we saw a lot tighter windows, so like with a 9 iron, we were within like 300 RPMs between a miss hit and a solid hit. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit more forgiving. To me, the way that the club looks, they said they changed a little bit with the sole. It looks like, especially with the 9 and the shorter irons, it looks more like a Vokey to me. The club's just a little bit lower to the ground. And for me, that's a huge plus because I have 4 Vokeys in the back. So. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much mirroring the set that I had before. I have always had 3 different models. So like, I think 3 seasons ago, I was using the MBs and the shorter irons, then T100 on the 5 and 6, and then a T200 on a 4 iron. And then I was struggling with forehand. Forehand was a club that I never really liked to hit, especially when the conditions were like the fairways get super tight, firm. If I get on a downslope, it was really hard for me to get the ball up. I think 2 models previous, the T200 got better, so it was really easy for me to get it up in the air. And then last year they improved the sound, which was nice, and then this year they improved the look of it, so it looks more like the T100 to me in the T250, and that's why I have that. Late last year I used the T200 as a 5-iron, which working something on my swing to try to feel like I wasn't trying to help the ball up into the air, and the 5-iron was kind of that, I guess, threshold where I felt like I had to help it up a little bit more in the air. So then we switched to a T200 head, and in tournaments this year in like San Antonio, for example, it was really hard to flight it. It was really hard to get consistent numbers sometimes when it got really windy. Sometimes because it was a bigger head, it would go way too far, it come through the wind. Sometimes it would float, and trying to figure out when it would do what was really, really hard. So we tried the T150, and this year's version of the T150 actually launches just as high as the T200 before, and that's been a huge plus. So being able to have a smaller head that launches just as high as the big head is obviously what everybody wants, and it makes workability a little bit easier with a smaller head as well.
Did you notice anything about like the finish or the number font on there or anything like that about the aesthetics?
I think as a player, that's like one of the first things you always look at. I've always told Nick with Titleist that I wish I could have raw irons. I know that they have them in the Callaways, and yeah, I think they're just like their compromise. I know they love their traditional pro, so I don't like shiny, so they look really good to me. They're not as shiny. For me, like the finish of the actual face where the grooves are, when there are no grooves in the toe, usually like it's a lot shinier on that toe. It feels like a lot more monochromatic. So to me, it's a little less distracting. It's nice.
Then we caught up with Lonto Griffin, who's likely switching into a set of new blacked out T100 irons and a new blacked out U505 2-iron. All right, Lonto, we see some new black irons in the bag. What's your review of them so far?
They're beautiful. All matte this year. They're very similar to the old ones. I don't notice much of a difference other than they feel a little bit more solid. Maybe launch is slightly higher for me. But just the overall look of them is incredible. So it's an easy change. It's funny, this first time I've ever done it, but basically softening the leading edge so that it has a little bit more bounce. So I'm a little steeper into the ground. So just by shaping that, it just kind of bounces off the turf, gets through the turf a little bit easier, a little shallower divots. The new 505 is really sleek. They made it a little bit skinnier. So it's not quite as wide back here, but then they move some weighting around on the bottom to where it'll launch just as high. So it looks a little bit more like a blade, or more blade-ish looking than the older one, but it performs just as good or better.
We even talked to Titleist fitter Nick Guyire after an exhausting day of countless iron fittings to get his take on launch day.
Yeah, exciting day. Obviously, really fun to get to show off the new product to the players. Some knew it was coming, probably some didn't. And I mean, I get to basically be Santa Claus, right? Hey, it's Titleist Iron launch, and here's a new set of irons or a new couple of irons, depending on what model they're in. And yeah, really exciting day. My first full-scale PGA Tour launch, so pretty exciting to get to go through it. We've had some really positive feedback. I think seeing the players get to hit it today, obviously we never know when it's going to go and play. Obviously positive feedback helps. Peter Malnati had fantastic feedback. He played his at the US Open locals, or excuse me, sectional qualifying yesterday. Played great, said they were awesome. He's got a great T100, T150 combo set, which is really cool. And everybody else, you know, hitting it today, lots of smiles, lots of, wow, that feels good. So I guess we'll find out on Thursday, but some really positive feedback, so that was great. I think when it comes to the tour validation process, we have to tour validate the finish as well. And so obviously many of your readers and viewers know that black typically comes down the line, but part of our process too is players that have played black historically, we want to make sure and validate not only the finish, but the new iron in that process. So I think just part of our process of getting it out on tour, getting feedback, and then hopefully we'll have 4th gen black at some point, and it'll be validated from out here.
Unfortunately, Titleist isn't revealing any details yet on the technology or release dates, so we'll have to hold tight for more information. Launch day aside, Ghim is popping up in the gear news again this week. On Wednesday, we took a look at his new Scotty Cameron mallet putter with a unique top line. Ghim said he kind of got the idea from Tom Kim, and he wanted to implement a more vertical looking top line design. Pretty cool stuff. In other putter news, we spoke with TaylorMade putter fitter James Holly to get the inside scoop on Logan Olson's new interchangeable putter technology out on tour. Check this out.
So yeah, with our new stuff that we're bringing out with this Logan Olson Matrix, we have 2 different faces. We have a standard kind of fly mill face, and then we have a grooved face that does give some roll benefit. With that, we have 2 different shapes. We have more of your square back and then a rounded back. And then we have 3 different widths. So you got your 1.0, 1.25, 1.5. So your narrow, your medium, and your wide blade. And I think the coolest thing, especially for me being on the green and fitting guys, you know, we have interchangeable weights, so we can change the weights out really easy on the fly. And then also for me, interchangeable back, so I can give guys different widths, different alignment options, and different backs just with a couple of changes. Yeah, it's a cool take on being able to do stuff kind of on the fly, change out looks for guys real quick, and weights. These are just little set screws, so if I wanted to just change weights out for guys, that back's not gonna just fly out. Makes fitting nice, right? Because I can give a guy the right length, the grip that he wants, and then I can just kind of change backs and weights really quick. With a 1.25, we would go up a little bit on the weights. So like these are 15s, so that would work out good. Right now it's just on tour. Everything goes in there real tight. Those weights are conical, so it gets in real tight. It's just a
That was quick.
cool process. Yeah, and you know, it's kind of new to me, so I'll get better at it and faster. And then, you know, as stuff evolves, we'll be able to bring out different fronts, different shape backs to put on and off. And then eventually, you know, we'll have some mid mallets out, which will be cool. I'm excited for that. I'm doing a ton of work with Hideki, which is fun every week. Hideki definitely knows his stuff. He knows what he likes. You know, that feedback from a guy like that who's, you know, seen probably millions of putters and putted with quite a bit of them, you know, that's invaluable to us. You know, the stuff we've learned from working with him, you know, some of the other players earlier with Scotty Scheffler, Nelly, Colin, Tommy, you know, all kind of goes into this matrix and the start for us out on tour. So, you know, the tour feedback and all that stuff is really invaluable for us.
On the range, we then watched along as Jake Knapp tested out an old crank driver he had laying around the house for about a couple years. It remains to be seen if it'll actually go and play this week, but maybe Bryson's recent driving performances in majors sparked some interest in testing out the crank this week. We also got a look into Corey Pavin's truly awesome bag setup. Pavin hasn't played in a PGA Tour event since 2015, but he's in the field this week as the 1996 champion of the event. He's turning back the clocks this week with an appearance at the event, and with the clubs in his bag. Alright, who's ready for some more throwbacks? This week, coming off an appearance at the 2025 PGA Championship at Quail Hollow, we caught up with Michael Block for a deep dive in his golf bag, where the clubs inside total over 111 years old. Enjoy our deep dive with Blocky himself.
Hey guys, Michael Block here at Colonial, the Charles Schwab Challenge. On the driving range, a little what's in the bag. As you can see, still have the bag from the PGA Championship last week at Quail Hollow. Is what happens is you show up with your normally like QI 35 bag, you unbox it, this one comes, you put all your stuff in, and then you send your other one back home. So I haven't been back home yet, so here we are, still with the Quail Hollow bag, which is pretty cool. Start with your driver. The driver is actually right now the Stealth 2, 9 degrees, set 1 notch off a lower. I got the Ventus 5X, so the Ventus 5X Velocore Plus. So I went to 5X a couple years ago. I saw Charlie Hoffman. Actually, I was playing with Charlie, and Charlie was hitting this 5X, and he's absolutely smashing it. And Charlie and I are pretty much similar age, and so I went with it, and I've loved it ever since. And I even have a backup one here just in case I get pissed, but it hasn't happened, so it's still alive, which is nice. This thing's been great. You know, obviously I'm not hitting it as far, it spins a lot, but here this week I need to be straight. And so it has quite a bit of spin, which makes my ball go a lot straighter, which is why I'm using it. And then here, I'm trying to go to the right one. I've got behind the PGA Cup, I've got the M5 3 wood set to lower, so 15 degrees, and I think that makes it about 13.5 degrees. Then I got the Mitsubishi Diamana 83 BBX, which is fantastic. This is my little beater cut 3 wood. Hit it actually a couple times here at Quail Hollow, so, or not Quail Hollow, here at Colonial. Now, last week I used this thing so much it was ridiculous. I mean, into every single par 4, seriously, and even the par 3s. This is the M5 5 wood, 19 degrees, set to all the way to lower, so 17.5 degrees. This still has the old school, as you might have noticed, I'm kind of old school, Tensei 70 TX shaft on it. This has been my bread and butter for a long time, as you can see. And what I've noticed a lot of guys, we tend to hit these woods a little more, I'd say, center to toe. You're never gonna see a wear spot out here on tour from center to heel. I never see that. It's always in this general zone, just so you guys know. So if you see that, you gotta adjust something, if it's the wrong area. Moving on, another great club that I love is the actually the 4 UDI 23 degrees with the 80 design 85 hybrid flex X. I'm probably not an X guy anymore, but at the same time I could probably get a little more speed with like maybe a little stiffer stiff shaft, but at the same time I like the stability of an X. I probably lose distance, I probably don't hit it quite as high as I could, but at the same time I'm so used to having that consistent feel down at the bottom, that's why I still stick with it. But I can still hit this a little higher. That's why I went with the little fatter 4-iron, because so that way I can actually hit it higher in the air and land it a little softer from about 205 to up to 220. Now all the irons, same guys. I'm not exactly sure what year these were, but they are the TaylorMade Tour Preferred MCs with a lot of weight. And I put more towards the toe, as you might be able to tell here, because my miss is more of a pull draw, and with a little extra weight on that toe, it leaves that face a little more square through the impact zone. I've never had them regrooved. As you can tell, as you get to my lower clubs like the 9-iron, it's still the OG grooves, never regrooved ever, but all of them have a lot of weight on the back, because back in the day I actually had the back ground down, the front leading edge, and then also I even had the top line ground down so it looked more like a blade from when I was over the golf ball. So that's what I did with all the irons. Greg Cesario at TaylorMade did that for me a long time ago, and he's still with TaylorMade, and he still grinds my stuff, which is great. Yeah, this is all my lead tape, and then you'll see when I get to that putter, all the lead tape is 100%. I don't know what anything weighs. I have no idea. I've never looked at it. I don't want to know. I don't know the frequency on my shafts. I don't know any of this stuff. I just literally start throwing stuff on it, and I feel it because I'm a super field player, and what feels good is what I go with. Heading to the wedges, I've got the 46 degree MG3. So I go 46 degrees basically for that gapping area. With all the irons, by the way, the irons are 6.5. You can't tell because they are, I don't know, 12 years old, so the shaft labels are officially gone. But they are rifle 6.5, I believe flighted. I don't know, I forgot. And then when you do get to my wedges, these are S400s, so a little more weight in them, not as stiff. I should probably switch to all of my clubs with the S400s, to be honest, because they feel so good. Wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, but I'd have to reshaft everything, and that scares me. So I stick with that. That's the 46. Then I've got the 52. I believe this might be the OG original MG 52, a black S400 dynamic gold shaft. And all my grips, by the way, are Golf Pride. They're all mid-size, and underneath I've got a total of 4 wraps. My hands are, so I always go by, like, what size glove do you wear? Me personally, I wear a size large glove, and I find a large glove that allows me to wrap my hands around the grip to be exactly where I want to be. If they're too small, my hands are like this. I feel like Shaquille O'Neal with a basketball. And then if they're too big, I can't hold them, and then I can't release the club. Next club up would be the 56. Once again, I believe the original 56. I think this was actually a 50, maybe 4 ground to something else. Then they put 56 on that MB, same shafts as well. And then getting to the 60, I actually got something new here because I need grooves around the greens, which is huge. So I got the MG4 raw material here. And due to, I take a ton of heel relief here, I always add weight. Because of this, we got to add weight. So I don't want to be quick with my wedges. So I like to have a lot of feel in there. So I always add weight in there. Once again, the S400 blacked out, which is pretty cool. This wedge is sweet. And this is what I will trade out maybe once a year. I should probably do it like every 3 months, to be honest. But I just, you know, once I feel the right grind on something, I just stick with it. Last but not least, OG old school Valero Texas Open Pro-Am putter. Old story, this school, you know, I was giving a guy a lesson back in Orochibuco Golf Club, and I told him, I said, hey, you know what? I'll give you a free lesson, but I want your putter. So I didn't charge him. I just wanted, because I saw this OG 2 ball, and I've got about 8 of them. The one I used at Oak Hill in 23 was actually the one version, one inch shorter, so this is not that one, but this one's just as old. So I've been using this one right now because I've been trying to get my posture a little bit more up. And then Johnny, just the other day, on the tour truck, actually wiped out my horrible rendition of me doing a line, because normally I use my PGA card and a Sharpie while I'm out playing, and I'll sit there like this and put a line on it. So he actually wiped it out and put a nice center line. He goes, Blocky, just so you know, your line wasn't even close to the center. So that's kind of nice. So now I'm actually gonna maybe hit in the middle of the club face from now on. And then the weight, once again, I have no idea how much weight this is, but I put a ton on the bottom and even more, a ton in the middle. I mean, it's gotta weigh a lot, but I have no idea how much. I don't wanna know, because what I do is I keep adding, and then once I start to feel the head weight with my hands, and my hands can be relaxed, that's what the weight I want it to be. So that's what's in the bag. Michael Block Colonial Edition. Appreciate you guys.
This week at Colonial, we also caught up with Lucas Glover, who's been testing drivers of late. And we got a deep dive into his what's in the bag as well.
This is Lucas Glover. What's in the bag from the Charles Schwab Challenge in Fort Worth, Texas, Colonial Country Club. So as you can see, got a lot of different things here, but just started with the new TaylorMade QI35 last week at the PGA. Liked it a lot. Draws nicely, which is kind of what I'm looking for in a driver. Hadn't had much luck finding any of the new ones that draw, so this one kind of fit. Ping 3 and 5 woods, the new G440s. Always had good luck with the Ping fairway woods for whatever reason. I think because they're flat, and I can hit down on them and they still go up in the air. Kind of old school of me, but that's where it's at. And then I got 2 of the ZX5 3 and 4 irons by Srixon. 3 iron 5 wood go in and out. This week will be the 5 wood. 3 iron will come out, and then from 5 iron through pitch and wedge, the ZX7's more of the traditional cavity back. 52, 56, and 60 are actually 52, 57, and 62 degrees. So 5 degrees of separation between those, which has been the good for me with gaps and numbers. And then the Lab Mez Max, really long, heavy broomstick. So yeah, that's what's in the bag this week. And like I said, 3 iron will come out, 5 wood will go in. Club collection. I still have all the clubs I won the US Open with. Still have my first club. After that, I don't think I have much of a collection. It's just kind of a ragtag thing. I got a lot of cousins and uncles and friends that play, and they get a lot of hand-me-downs, put it that way. So I wouldn't say I have much of a collection other than a couple of little pieces to hang on to from over the years. There's a little Mickey Mouse wooden driver cut down to about that big. My mom kept it all those years, and years ago, a few years back, put it in a like shadow box for me with, you know, first club type thing. Pretty cool.
Love it.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time, Lucas.
No problem, guys.
And with that, unfortunately, we say goodbye to Colonial Country Club this week. Before we go though, don't forget to check out all the gear photos in the GolfWRX.com forums taken by our esteemed photographer Gregory Moore. And we'll see you next time on GolfWRX.com's video series, Inside the Ropes.